Hello and welcome to my technique video series. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, so it's finally here and I'm excited to share this with the world of tennis. My name is Punch and this is 1-2 Punch Tennis. Imagine that you've been playing tennis like a trial version, thinking you're making progress, thinking you're winning, only to realize you've been using the 30-day trial over and over. You were not wrong. You just didn't know what was included with the full subscription. It happened to me and it happens to 97% of players out there. In this video mini-series, I'm going to break down the psychology of technique in tennis. Then I'm going to cover 3 important steps when it comes to technique. How did technique become so overlooked and so misunderstood? Secondly, why technique is going to be what solves your tennis struggles and the problems you see daily. And thirdly, why has it been so difficult to explain and why there are so many opinions surrounding it? So who's this video for? Firstly, it's for that player who checks off all the boxes. You do the work day in, day out, but you still find that you are inconsistent with your results and inconsistent with your shots. Secondly, the player who's overwhelmed with all the different opinions out there. And thirdly, the player who just wants to know whether they're on the right track. You don't want to waste your resources. You don't want to waste your time. You want to make sure you get the best out of your tennis. Also, not to leave out the player who's serious about their game and doesn't want to waste any time in their development phase. The development phase is very important. So this will be great to allow a young player to get on the right track early. So that way later they don't have to fix any problems that they have built or any unnecessary habits they have built. A big mistake a lot of players make in this sport is that once they hear about a concept, they are led to believe that if you just drill it over and over, it's going to fix or improve that part of their game. If it were only that easy, we would all be doing it, correct? The good news is, once you see it and you do it, you cannot unsee it. You're going to feel a confidence unlike any other, and what you're going to feel is what I call true confidence, and the feeling where you can't miss. And even if you try, you're going to feel as though I actually don't know how to miss. Before I get on court and go through more of these concepts, I want to break down technique into 2 parts: standard technique and comprehensive technique. I'm just going to use simple terms. Standard technique includes the words we've heard before. For example, unit turn, under the ball, spin, be aggressive, hit big targets, racket lag. The list goes on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify it and go through each one of those terms and break down exactly why they work and how one is able to achieve it. It's not as easy or as simple as 10-minute video suggesting that you should do it. It's going to be more about the psychology, and if you overcome those psychological barriers first, then some of those videos may make sense. Some may not be correct, but there's a lot of correct information out there. But before that, you have to understand the psychology of it and how to enter into that new change that you want to make. And comprehensive technique, I'm going to break it down in more detail after the psychology and go through the mechanical part of things, because the mechanical part also needs to be broken down in a few steps. I like to use the analogy of building an engine in this case. The engineer is the person who built the engine, and then after the engineer comes the mechanic. So after the mechanic is then the driver, right? Which is you who will start the car and drive the engine. The first part of this, the engineer has to have a great understanding of how the engine works and why they are building that particular engine. The mechanic needs less skill than the engineer. What they need to do, or I shouldn't say less skill, I should say different skill than the engineer, because what they need to do is take the already built engine and then copy paste, right? If there's a part that's broken, they take it off and they put a new part in there. So the skills of the mechanic are where most of us players fall into place. We want to copy paste when we do drills, but unfortunately it's not enough, because you have to understand at least what you're doing. So if you have somebody to explain to you why you're doing it, that way you will take off the right part. So you're not going to have any wasted energy or wasted resources. Now the driver, right, the one who buys the car with that engine, and they just need to get from A to B, correct? So they just need to know how to use the pedals, steering wheel, start the car. And you have to think of where you fall into that category. So unfortunately, or I should say fortunately, in tennis, that's why it's one of the most unique sports, is that you have to be on court figuring this out. Now, I have different opinions about coaching or coaching being allowed, but that's not for this video. The idea is that's where a player has to be the engineer. And when you are the engineer, you can actually troubleshoot and break it down, as I'm about to explain what comprehensive technique is going to do for you. So let's go into that. Before we go into that, let's make one little note. Matches can be won in many different ways. Fitness, power, good tactics, your opponent's inadequacies. So your opponent makes mistakes, you get rewarded with points. Mental toughness, and lastly, solid technique. Important here is that some days you're going to need one more than the other. And then on some days you have to bring all of it, which is termed your A game, correct? So you want to be able to bring your A game whenever you want. And one's A game is only held back by their technical understanding or their technique. This is where we've heard a lot of times where somebody will say, you know, too many players work too much on their technique. This only applies to someone who's learning the wrong technique, because if you're learning the wrong technique, you're going to be going down an endless cycle. But if you're working with correct information, you're going to have a set program, and once you learn each piece of that puzzle, you're going to get to the end goal. Just like in math class, when you start with 1 plus 1 is 2, then you get to subtraction, then you get, so once you understand each concept, then you're going to leave it behind and then reach your training phase in a timely fashion. And once you reach your training phase, then you can make the drills work for you. So the drills that you're going to do are then going to allow you to excel. If you don't go through the first piece of that process of getting your strokes correct, you are going to do drills and they're not going to work for you, which usually ends in frustration and oftentimes quitting. A player will actually quit because they realize they've hit a wall. Doesn't matter how hard I try, I'm always getting the same results, and what else can I do? Let me stop playing.
Join me in part 2, where I'll explain why most players are stuck with standard technique versus having comprehensive technique. See you there.